I am Natalie, 34 years old, and this is the story of the unexpected journey that changed my life forever. 10 years ago, my sister, Emily, left her 3-month-old daughter on my doorstep in the small town of Ashbourne, a quiet place where everyone knows everyone's business, and where secrets don't stay secret for long. That night, under the drizzle of a typical English autumn rain, my life veered sharply off the path I had meticulously laid out for myself before Lily arrived. I had everything under control, or so I thought. I was working as a senior nurse at Ashbourne General Hospital, recently promoted to lead nurse on the pediatric ward, and I was in a relationship with James, an architect whose charm was as effortless as his smile. We had been together for 2 years, discussing moving in together and the usual future plans that people in their early 30s entertain. Life was ticking along like a well-oiled clock, steady and predictable. Then came that Tuesday night in late October. I had just returned home after a grueling 12-hour shift, boots kicked off, hair still damp from the relentless rain outside. The sofa called to me, along with a glass of something red and a takeaway curry. But then the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I almost ignored it, convinced it was just the post or a neighbor who'd mistakenly come to the wrong house. Reluctantly, I answered. There on my doorstep sat a car seat, shielded by a thin, rain-soaked blanket. I peeled it back and found a tiny baby girl with dark hair, an echo of Emily's own, and rosy cheeks flushed from the cold. In the side pocket of the car seat was a folded note, written in Emily's unmistakable handwriting. Her name is Lily. I can't do this. Take care of her. I'm sorry. Just 7 words, but they felt like a punch to the gut. I looked up and down the street, but Emily was gone. Gone like a ghost, vanished into the night. I tried calling her number straight to voicemail. Panic began to gnaw at the edges of my mind. What was I supposed to do with a baby I had never planned to care for? I didn't even own a single item of baby gear. No formula, no nappies, not even a muslin cloth. Absolutely nothing. That I called Mum and Dad, hoping for some support. But their response was colder than the rain that night. She's your responsibility now, Dad said flatly. Mum added bitterly, Emily made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. They had no interest in helping. No offers to lend a hand or even a word of comfort. We're too old for this, Dad said. We're done cleaning up after her. I was left holding a sleeping baby, my heart hammering in my chest, as the reality sank in. I was suddenly a mother to a child who wasn't mine by blood, but was mine by every other measure that mattered. James? When I called him, hoping for some practical help, his voice was heavy with disbelief and irritation. Natalie, you can't just keep a baby your sister dumped on you. You need to call social services. That was the last straw. I realized I was utterly alone. Dragging myself out into the cold night, I drove to the nearest 24-hour supermarket. Still in my scrubs, I roamed the baby aisle like a lost tourist in a foreign land. Googling best formula for 3-month-olds on my phone, trying to figure out how nappies worked. A kind elderly shop assistant took pity on me, helping me gather the essentials with a knowing smile. No questions asked. That first night was a chaotic blur of feeding, crying, and desperate Googling. I fashioned a makeshift crib out of an old drawer and blankets, barely sleeping as I woke every few hours to soothe Lily's hungry cries. I whispered a promise in the dark, clutching her tiny hand. I don't know where your mum is, but you're safe with me. I'll figure this out. The following days were a whirlwind of new responsibilities and harsh realities. My 1-bedroom flat was woefully inadequate for the 2 of us, so I stretched every penny to move into a small 2-bedroom rental closer to the hospital. Nights and weekends were spent assembling baby furniture and learning how to swaddle. Work shifted from a career climb to a delicate balancing act of shifts and childcare, with Gloria, a kindly neighbor who ran a small home nursery, looking after Lily while I was on duty. James and I drifted apart quickly. He couldn't reconcile the reality of me being a single mother overnight. Our plans for a future together crumbled, and with a heavy heart, I ended things. It hurt more than I expected, but his refusal to support me made it clear I was better off alone. My parents barely visited, and when they did, their criticism was as sharp as ever. Mum held Lily as though she might crack, never offering to change a nappy or feed her, instead focusing on the clutter in my tired eyes. Dad hovered in the background, arms crossed, a silent judge to the chaos he refused to acknowledge as family. Thankfully, I found support elsewhere. My colleagues at the hospital rallied around me, hosting a baby shower filled with hand-me-down clothes and essential gear. Mrs. Whitaker, my next-door neighbor, became a surrogate grandmother, sharing her tried-and-tested tricks for calming a colicky baby and offering a warm smile on the hardest days legal matters complicated everything. I hired a solicitor to help with guardianship papers, navigating a system that seemed designed to slow me down. I was fingerprinted, my home inspected, and my entire life put under scrutiny. Every detail was questioned, every choice second-guessed. I also hired a private investigator to track down Emily. After months, he traced her to Brighton, where she had been working in a cafe before disappearing again. It was a bittersweet revelation, knowing she was alive but choosing not to come back. Despite the chaos, Lily flourished. Her first smile, her tentative steps, her babbled attempts at words, all became treasured milestones. I kept a memory box with her early clothes, the note Emily left, and photos capturing the growing bond between us. Her first birthday was modest but filled with love. Mrs. Whitaker baked a cake, my friends brought balloons, and Lily gleefully smeared frosting across her face, oblivious to the absence of her birth mother. My parents declined the invitation, citing vague prior commitments. 5 years flew by in a blur of school runs, playdates, and bedtime stories. Lily grew into a bright, curious child with a penchant for dinosaur stories and star-patterned shoes, much to Mum's dismay, who insisted she should be in ballet classes like all the other girls. My relationship with James was a distant memory, replaced by the fierce, unyielding love I had for my daughter. Then, exactly 10 years after that rainy night, Emily reappeared. Not the wild, broken woman who had left Lily, but a polished, sober version of herself. Married, stable, with a story of redemption and recovery. She wanted custody back, claiming she could offer Lily a better life than I ever could. The battle that followed tested every ounce of strength I had. My parents sided with Emily, accusing me of alienating Lily from her real family. The courtroom became a battleground where love and bloodlines clashed, and the stakes were nothing less than the very definition of family. When the judge asked if they knew what I had, I handed over a sealed folder containing evidence that would turn the case on its head. The truth about Emily's motives, the financial interests lurking beneath the surface, and my parents' years of deception all came to light. The judge's eyes widened, and as she looked around the courtroom, the tension was palpable. "Do they even know what you have?" she asked. I simply nodded, ready to tell the story of a decade-long fight for the daughter of my heart, and to show what true family really means. The courthouse loomed over me like a fortress, its stone pillars cold and unyielding under the pale morning sky. I dressed carefully for the day, choosing a tailored navy blue suit with a crisp white blouse. An armor of professionalism, I hoped would shield not only me but the years of love and care I'd poured into Lily. My heels clicked purposefully down the marble corridors as I approached the courtroom, each step echoing the weight of the battle to come. Lily was safely with her art teacher, Mrs. Bennet, a gentle woman who had become a steady presence in our lives and volunteered to keep her calm and distracted during the hearing. I kissed my daughter's cheek that morning, whispering promises of bravery and hope. She was the reason I had to be strong, to fight harder than I ever had before. The courtroom filled quickly, Emily and her husband, Thomas, seated across from me. Emily looked polished in a floral dress that tried to soften the sharp edges of her sudden return to motherhood. Thomas, always immaculate in his tailored suits, sat beside her with an air of quiet confidence that made my skin crawl. Behind them, my parents sat stiffly, Mum clutching her handbag with white-knuckled fingers, Dad's jaw set so tight it looked like it might crack. Judge Harrington entered, her silver hair a crown of authority, her eyes sharp beneath reading glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. She wasted no time in outlining the case, stressing that the child's best interests would be paramount, a phrase I had heard so many times it was beginning to lose meaning. Emily's testimony was a carefully rehearsed performance. She spoke of mistakes made in youth, of the dark spiral that swallowed her whole, and the long road to sobriety she had walked since. She painted a picture of a stable marriage, a spacious home with a garden, and the promise of a life filled with opportunities one supposedly could not offer Lily. Her voice wavered at all the right moments, tears welling as she claimed to want to make up for lost time. Thomas followed, his words smooth and calculated. He boasted about their 4-bedroom house, the top-tier local schools, and the financial security he said would guarantee Lily's future. College funds, family holidays, a perfect childhood laid out neatly like the blueprints of a house he designed. His smile was sharp, and his eyes flicked to Emily as if waiting for her approval. Then came my parents' turn. Mum's voice was sweet but laced with criticism as she described me as stubborn and controlling, accusing me of shutting them out and keeping Lily from her real family. Dad, ever the silent sentinel, echoed the sentiment with a few brief but cutting remarks about blood ties and biological rights. The betrayal stung deeper than I expected. These were the people who should have stood by me, not sided against me. When it was my turn, I stood and spoke with the weight of 10 years behind every word. I told the story of those early nights, how I had learned to care for Lily from scratch, my heart breaking and mending with every sleepless hour. I described our routines, the traditions we had built, and the network of friends who had become our family. I spoke of the love that had grown between us, fierce and unbreakable, not because of DNA, but because of choice and devotion. The courtroom shifted in energy when Julia, my solicitor, handed the judge the sealed folder. I watched as Judge Harrington's eyes scanned the documents, her expression darkening with every page. The room fell silent as she looked up sharply, meeting the eyes of Emily and Thomas. Then my parents, Miss Morgan, the judge said, her voice steady but firm, "Are you aware of the contents of this folder?" Emily shook her head, confusion flickering across her features. "This folder contains evidence directly contradicting several key claims in your petition," the judge continued, "including documentation that Mr. Thomas Morgan has been actively searching for Lily's biological father, Mr. Jason Reynolds, who, it appears, inherited a substantial fortune last year." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Emily's face drained of color as she glanced at Thomas, whose expression hardened. The judge paused before continuing. "Furthermore, there is evidence that Mr. and Mrs. Parker," she nodded toward my parents, "have been in regular contact with Miss Morgan for approximately 3 years, contradicting their sworn testimony claiming ignorance of her whereabouts until recently. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My mother stared at her hands, unable to meet the judge's gaze. The weight of their deception hung heavy in the room. Additionally, the judge said, social media posts and private communications suggest financial motives underpinning this custody petition. This court takes such matters seriously that I felt my throat tighten but held steady, the truth finally breaking through the facade that had threatened to dismantle everything I'd built with Lily. The judge called a recess, and the courtroom emptied slowly, leaving a charged silence between the parties. When we returned, her expression was grave. "Having reviewed the evidence and testimony, this court finds that the petitioner's case is compromised by significant misrepresentations and motivations that extend beyond the welfare of the child," she pronounced. "While Miss Morgan's intentions may be genuine, the timing and circumstances raise concerns about her judgment." Turning to me, her voice softened, "Miss Parker, the evidence presented demonstrates your unwavering commitment to Lily's well-being. The testimonies of educators and mental health professionals, coupled with your documented care, firmly establish that Lily's best interests are served by maintaining her current living arrangement with you." She paused, then delivered the verdict that had seemed impossible for so long. "The petition for change of custody is hereby denied. Miss Morgan will be granted supervised visitation, subject to review, to facilitate a relationship consistent with the child's welfare." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave, overwhelming and sweet. Julia squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with quiet triumph. I looked up at the judge, gratitude choking my words. The hearing closed with a stern admonishment to my parents for their false testimony, a rare moment where justice seemed to pierce through family betrayal. As the gavel struck, signaling the end, I gathered my things, my hands still trembling. Emily approached me quietly, tears streaking her cheeks. "I never wanted to hurt you or Lily," she murmured, voice broken. "It all got so complicated." I nodded, exhausted and raw. "Didn't have to be. You could have been honest from the start." She swallowed hard and looked away. Thomas lingered nearby, but his presence felt distant and cold outside. The sunlight was warm on my face as I stepped out of the courthouse with my future in my hands. When I collected Lily from Mrs. Bennett's that afternoon, her eyes searched mine anxiously. "What did the judge say? Do I still get to live with you?" she asked, voice trembling. That I knelt down, taking her hands in mine. "Yes, sweetheart. You're staying with me. We're still a family," she exhaled, her whole body relaxing as she threw her arms around me. "You promised. Cross your heart." That I smiled, pressing my fingers to my chest in the promise we'd made countless times before. Always. That evening we celebrated with greasy pizza and sticky ice cream. The kind of feast that felt like a royal banquet after months of uncertainty. Lily chattered excitedly about her day, her laughter filling the small apartment that was finally home. And the weeks that followed, I confronted my parents alone, demanding answers for their betrayal. Their protests were feeble, their excuses thin. I laid down new rules: supervised visits only, no undermining my parenting, no secret talks with Emily. They resisted but eventually conceded, understanding I was no longer the naive girl they once dismissed. Lily's therapy sessions continued, helping her untangle the confusing threads of her family story. She once confided, "Sometimes I feel like I have two moms but also no mom." It broke my heart, but I reminded her that family is about love, not just blood. Slowly, Emily settled into a role more fitting. A cautious presence, an auntly figure rather than a replacement mother. Thomas's interest faded once the financial angle evaporated, and he disappeared from our lives like a bad smell. Professionally, I found my footing again, earning a promotion to health services coordinator for the local schools, a job that balanced well with Lily's needs. We moved to a larger flat with a tiny garden where Lily planted flowers and dreams alike. One quiet afternoon, Emily and I met over coffee at the same cafe where she'd first reappeared. Her apology was simple but profound. She admitted she had been wrong about everything. Watching me with Lily had shown her what real motherhood looked like. She told me she had ended things with Thomas, focusing instead on sobriety and building a healthy relationship with Lily on her terms. The road ahead was uncertain but less fraught. We found a fragile peace, a truce forged in the shared love for a child who deserved nothing less. As Lily's 11th birthday approached, she surprised me with a card that brought tears to my eyes. Inside she'd written, "To my mom who chose me every day for 11 years. Biology makes relatives but love makes family. Thank you for being my real mom." I held that card close, a beacon during the storm. From the night Lily appeared on my doorstep to the fierce fight to keep her, I had learned that family is not just about blood. It's about the promises we keep, the love we give, and the fight we're willing to endure. Yet late one evening as I tucked Lily into bed, a chill ran down my spine. Something about the neatness of the court victory felt incomplete, like a shadow lurking just beyond the glow of the nightlight. I glanced at the sealed folder tucked away in my desk drawer, wondering what secrets it still held. Secrets from the past that might yet come knocking on our door. Because sometimes, even when you think the battle is won, the war is far from over. The months following the court ruling settled over us like a fragile calm after a storm, but beneath the surface, a quiet unease lingered. Life resumed its rhythms: school runs, bedtime stories, weekend trips to the park, but every so often, I caught myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a message or a call that would drag us back into the chaos. Lily blossomed with an almost defiant joy, her laughter ringing through our small flat as she created worlds with her crayons and blocks. Yet, even in her brightest moments, there were flickers of hesitation, those brief pauses when her eyes clouded with questions she didn't quite voice. I held her a little tighter on those days, whispering reassurances, while my own mind spun with doubts. Emily kept her distance, respecting the boundaries we'd set, but her presence was a constant reminder of the fractured family we'd become. She sent occasional birthday cards and gifts, thoughtful but carefully measured gestures, like a visitor who wasn't sure how welcome she truly was. Thomas had vanished completely, as if he'd been nothing more than a passing shadow, and I wasn't sorry to see him go. Work offered a welcome distraction. My promotion to health services coordinator meant longer hours but a steadier paycheck, and with it, the chance to move us into a slightly larger flat with a tiny garden where Lily could finally plant the wildflowers she'd been dreaming of. It was a small victory, but one that felt monumental in the context of everything we'd endured. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed with a story about brave knights and clever dragons, I returned to my desk to sort through the clutter of unopened mail and forgotten paperwork. My eyes fell on the sealed folder, the one I'd handed to the judge, the one that had shifted the entire custody battle. A flicker of unease stirred deep inside me and I hesitated, fingers resting lightly on the envelope's edge. There were things in there I hadn't fully unpacked myself. Documents, messages, photographs that revealed more than just the surface of Emily's sudden reappearance. The private investigators' reports, the financial records, the unsettling inconsistencies in Thomas's background. Evidence that had toppled their carefully constructed narrative, but also hinted at shadows I still didn't understand. Curiosity gnawed at me, mingling with a sense of foreboding. Had we truly seen the last of the past? Or was this just the calm before another storm? The next day, I found myself wandering the aisles of the local library, searching for distractions in the form of books and magazines. Lily was with Mrs. Bennet, and the flat felt emptier than usual. That's when I noticed it. A small unmarked envelope slipped between the pages of a worn novel on family LW. My heart skipped as I unfolded it. Inside was a note, brief and chilling. Asterisk, not everything is as it seems. Watch closely. Asterisk, no signature. No clue as to who had left it. I blinked, the words sinking in like cold water. Someone was watching, someone who knew more than they let on. Had they been waiting all this time, lurking in the background, patient and silent? The thought sent a shiver racing down my spine. That night, as Lily slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of decades-old family secrets pressing down like a storm cloud. I thought about Emily, about my parents, about the tangled web of lies and half-truths that had defined my life for so long, and I knew one thing for certain. Whatever shadows had been cast over us, whatever mysteries remained hidden in the quiet corners of our past, I would face them head-on. For Lily. For us. Because family isn't just about who shows up when it's easy. It's about who stands by you when the darkness falls. And as the night deepened, I felt a fierce resolve ignite within me. This story was far from over. The following weeks unfolded with a restless energy I couldn't shake. The note from the library, so cryptic and unexpected, clung to my thoughts like a stubborn shadow. I tried to dismiss it as a prank, a careless joke left by some bored stranger, but deep down I knew better. There was a thread dangling just beyond my reach, and if I didn't grab hold, it might unravel everything I'd fought to protect. My days became a careful dance between normality and vigilance. At work, I maintained my professional composure, coordinating school health services and managing my team with the steady confidence that Lily needed me to have. Yet beneath the surface I was scanning every email, every message, looking for the slightest hint of disruption. Lily remained my beacon. Her days were filled with the simple joys a child deserves, drawing fantastical creatures with wild crayon strokes, experimenting with her new gardening tools, and eagerly preparing for the school's annual art exhibition. Watching her, I felt a swell of pride that was fierce and tender all at once. She had endured so much, yet her spirit remained unbroken. One crisp Saturday morning, I was at the farmer's market, picking up fresh vegetables for the week ahead, when I spotted a familiar figure across the crowded stalls. It was Mrs. Whitaker, my kind-hearted neighbor who had been a lifeline during those early days with Lily. She waved me over, her face serious beneath the brim of her sun hat. "Natalie," she said in a low voice, glancing around as if expecting someone to be listening, "I think you should know, there's been talk in town. People are asking questions about your family. About Lily's father." My heart tightened. "What sort of questions?" Mrs. Whitaker hesitated, then leaned closer. "Some say he's not who you think. That there's more to the story than Emily or your parents have let on. It's nothing concrete, but it's enough to make me worry for you." I forced a smile, masking the spike of fear that prickled at my skin. "Thank you for telling me. I'll be careful." That evening, after Lily was asleep, I pulled out the folder again, sifting through the files with fresh eyes. Among the neatly organized papers, I found a series of emails between Emily and a man named Jason Reynolds, the name I'd heard whispered in hushed tones. According to the correspondence, Jason wasn't just a distant relative or an incidental figure. He was deeply entangled in the family's darkest secrets. There were mentions of money, threats veiled in polite language, and references to a past that Emily had worked hard to bury. But the most unsettling detail was a cryptic message about a truth too dangerous to be revealed. I sat back, the weight of it all crashing over me. It wasn't just a custody battle or a family feud anymore. There were forces at play far beyond my understanding. Secrets that could shatter the fragile peace Lily and I had built. Sleep became elusive. Night after night, I found myself staring out the window, watching the street lamps flicker against the dark sky, wondering who was watching me in return. One evening, as I locked the front door behind me after a late shift, a folded piece of paper slipped through the mail slot. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. The message was brief and chilling. "Some doors are better left closed." I swallowed hard, the chill creeping up my spine. My mind raced back to the promises I'd made to Lily, the vows whispered in the dark, the silent oaths to protect her at all costs, but now those promises felt like a gauntlet thrown at my feet that I knew I couldn't turn away. Not now, because sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought in courtrooms or with lawyers. They're fought in the shadows where the truth hides, waiting for someone brave enough to find it. And I was ready to face whatever came next. For Lily. For us. Because family isn't just about the past. It's about the courage to protect the future. And as I folded the note carefully and placed it in the drawer, I felt something stir deep inside me, a fierce, unyielding fire. The story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days blurred into a tense haze, the kind that wraps around you like a thick fog, dulling the edges of everything familiar and safe. I moved through each moment with careful precision. Dropping Lily off at school, managing my workload, responding to messages, but inside my mind was a whirlwind of questions and unease. The cryptic warnings had shattered the fragile illusion of normality I'd fought so hard to create. One rainy afternoon, as I sat in the small kitchen of our flat, Lily perched on the windowsill busy sketching a fantastical castle. I caught myself watching her with a mix of fierce protectiveness and heart-wrenching vulnerability. The child I had raised from a frightened infant was growing into a bright, curious girl. But the shadows of our past threatened to reach out and pull her back into uncertainty. I reached for my phone and dialed the private investigator. His name was Paul. A man with a sharp eye and an unrelenting tenacity that had already uncovered more than once the tangled threads of Emily's disappearance. When he answered, his voice was steady but tinged with concern. "Natalie, I've been digging into the background of Jason Reynolds and his connections," Paul said. "There's more than just inheritance involved. There are ties to some questionable circles. Money laundering, offshore accounts, people who don't like their secrets exposed." My stomach twisted. "Are you saying Lily's biological father might be involved in something dangerous?" Paul hesitated. "It's possible. I'm tracking movements and communications, but it's complicated. You need to be careful." "That I understand," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Thank you, Paul. Please keep me updated." After we hung up, I sat back, the weight of the unknown pressing heavily against my chest. Protecting Lily wasn't just about custody battles anymore. It was about shielding her from a past that threatened to crash into her future with the force of a storm. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at me with wide eyes, a question bubbling on her lips. "Nana, why does Aunt Emily want to be part of our family now?" she asked softly. That I smiled gently, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead. "Because sometimes people need time to find their way back. But no matter who's around, I'm always here for you. You're my world." Her small hand found mine, squeezing tightly. "I'm glad you're my mum. The best mum." Her words were a balm to my soul, a reminder of why I had to keep fighting, keep pushing through the uncertainty. The following days brought more unsettling signs. A neighbor's hushed warnings, unfamiliar cars parked too long outside our building, the feeling of being watched. I installed extra locks and a security camera, small measures that gave me a semblance of control in a situation spiraling beyond it. Then one evening an unexpected knock shattered the quiet. I opened the door to find a man in his late 40s, his face shadowed beneath a worn cap. He introduced himself as Michael, a friend of Jason Reynolds. "That I'm here to warn you," he said, voice low and urgent. "There are people who don't want you digging into the past. For Lily's sake, you need to stop." That I stared at him, heart hammering. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've seen what happens when secrets come to light," Michael replied grimly. "You're in danger, Natalie. But more than that, Lily is. Be careful who you trust." He left as suddenly as he had arrived, leaving behind a chilling silence. That night I lay awake, the weight of his words settling like a stone in my gut. The fight for Lily's future was no longer just a legal battle. It was a fight for her safety. But turning back was never an option. Not when the stakes were so high. I was determined to uncover the truth, protect my daughter, and hold our fragile family together. Even if it meant walking through fire. Because love isn't just about comfort. Sometimes it's about courage. And as dawn broke over Ashbourne, casting golden light across our small flat, I felt a fierce resolve burning brighter than ever. This was only the beginning.